Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us all today. My name is Jonah from Spotlight, and today we're going to be talking to Virginia. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jonah. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited for this class.
Me too. I'm so excited. My dad actually lived in Brazil for years and speaks a little Brazilian Portuguese. I haven't
Cool.
there, but I love the language. As a musician, I'm obsessed with Brazilian music, of course, because it's absolutely pivotal to the world of music. But so excited to be here today. And just want to say a couple things before we get started. For everyone watching, please hop in the comments as you're already doing. Love it. Let us know where you're tuning in from, something you're excited to learn today, maybe how you heard about Virginia or how you heard about Spotlight. We love hearing all of those things. And please, anytime during the presentation, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Virginia's going to be asking you some questions as well. So feel free to use that chat space as much as you like. We love having you in there. And if you're watching the replay as well, please comment in there. We do come back and love answering all of those questions, seeing where you're at. So don't be afraid. Hop in there. Join us for today's event. And just to make sure everybody is in the right place, like I said, we're talking to Virginia and we're going to be talking about just introducing you to Brazilian Portuguese today. And if anything is moving fast, you have to get up away from the computer, anything like that, don't fret. All of this will be available in a replay. It'll be on YouTube, on the Spotlight event page, and also emailed to you along with the event offer, which we'll talk about a little later. But Virginia, I don't want to take up any more time. So I'm going to hand it over to you and we can dive in.
Of course. Thank you, Jonah,
Of
for
course.
organizing this. I'm so excited to be here. I teach a lot of live classes on my YouTube channel, but my first time here on Spotlight, so I'm excited. I see some of my students in the chat already. Oi, Margus. Rolf, Donna, Walter, Maria. Tudo bom,
Love it.
gente? So good to see all of you here. So today we are going to study Portuguese. For those who don't know me, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Virginia. I'm originally from Brazil, from São Paulo. I moved to the US, to New York, about 9 years ago. And I created an online school to teach Brazilian Portuguese as a second language. Most of my students are from the US, but I also have students from all over the world. That's the magic of the internet, right? And online courses. So I offer courses for students of all levels, beginner to advanced. And all my courses include online classes, online courses, pre-recorded lessons, and in conjunction to Zoom classes. So you have classes with Brazilian teachers via Zoom. So if you're interested at all in learning more about my work, go to my website, is speakingbrazilian.com. I will be available to answer questions at the end of this class. So if you have any questions about my work, about Portuguese, or anything that we cover in class, write down your questions and you can ask at the end of the class, but I'm also available to answer some questions during the class. So if you have questions about the topic that I'm talking about, I recommend that you ask right away so I can stop and explain that topic better. Tá bem? Combinado? Deal? Muito bom. So I'm going to share my screen. I have just one last thing that I want. Oh, it's there already. So one last thing before I dive in is I want to invite you to a very special event. It's the Brazilian Portuguese Week. This is a free event that I host once a year in April. And this year is going to be held from April 17th to 23rd. You can sign up for free on my website, but I see that you can also find a link here on this chat, the live chat. And I recommend that you join, if you like my class, the class that we're having today, I recommend that you join the Brazilian Portuguese Week because we're going to have like 7 classes, it's 7 days. You also have access to material. It's going to be a very fun and amazing week to improve your Portuguese. Tá bem? So I can talk more about that at the end of the class, but let's get started. Vamos lá. Introdução ao português brasileiro. So you see that my material is bilingual. You see Portuguese and English. This is good for you to start getting used to Brazilian Portuguese. Even if this is your first time studying Portuguese, you will be able to follow this class, so don't worry. But if you have been studying Portuguese for a while, this class is always also going to be useful for you because I'm going to explain some very important details that can be helpful for you. Tá bem? Então vamos lá. Okay, so just moving here, moving around. So I have one tip before we get started in with the content. One tip that I always use, that I always think about when I'm learning a language, when I'm studying English or French or Spanish, I like to learn sentences, not words. Because if you learn like single words, you don't know how to use them, right? You just, and it is so hard to memorize words by themselves. So my tip for you is try to learn sentences. But how do you do that? So first, think about what would you like to say in Portuguese, and then after that, think about how you can research and learn how to say that thing in Portuguese instead of learning random words that you don't know if you're going to use them at all. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you 3 very, very important questions, if you have time, 2 or 3 very important questions, and how to answer those questions in Portuguese. And I'm going to explain the details that you need to learn to use that to speak Portuguese correctly. Tá bem? Vamos lá. So, pergunta número 1, question number 1. How would you answer this question in Portuguese? Qual é o seu nome? Qual é seu nome? So this question is very important, right? So if you are meeting someone for the first time, or Brazilian, if you go to Brazil, this is a question that everyone is going to ask you, and you have to know how to ask and answer this question correctly. But what do you need to know in order to be able to say your name in Portuguese? You need to know basic sentence structure. We are going to talk about that right now. You need to know how to conjugate verb ser, which is equivalent to the verb to be in Portuguese. You know that we are not going to talk about that today, but in Portuguese we have 2 verbs that are translated as the verb to be, verbs ser and estar. Many of you probably already know that, but today we are only going to use verb ser, tá bem? Which means to be. And also you need to know how to use possessive pronouns. What are those? Those little words. Meu, seu, which means my, your, right? When you ask the question, what is your name? Qual é o seu nome? You have to use these little pronouns correctly. So let's talk about these details now. So while I explain all the details, I want to give you a small assignment. I want you to answer this question. I'm going to give you a couple of options. So you can ask this question in 2 different ways, and you can answer this question in at least 3 different ways. So these are the options that you have, and I want you to practice, type in the chat, and then after I explain the details about this topic, I'm going to read some of your comments and see if you have any questions about this. Tá bem? So the most common way of asking this question in Portuguese is, qual é seu nome? So here you see that the structure, fortunately, is very similar to English. This is something interesting. Portuguese and English, most of the time, they have a similar sentence structure, but not always. So be careful. Sometimes the structure is completely different. The place where you place words are completely different from English. So I want you to know that, but don't worry about that because I tried to bring examples that are very similar to English, so that helps you as a beginner student, tá bem? So, what is your name? Qual é seu nome? So, same structure, right? What is your name? How would you answer this question? You could say, meu nome é, and then add your name. My name is. Meu nome é Virginia. Or you could also just say, I'm Virginia, right? Eu sou Virginia. So here we have the verb to be. Eu sou in Portuguese. Another way of asking this question, this is a little bit less common, but many people also use this question, is como você se chama. So this is different, right? This is different from English. It means what is your name, but the translation word by word would be something like, how are you called? Or what are you called? It is weird, right? In English, I think we would not speak that way. But in Portuguese, you can also use this other question. And he could answer this question saying, eu me chamo Virginia. This is less common. So if you are a beginner, complete beginner, I recommend that you focus on these first three examples that I gave you, the question and the two options to answer. But I wanted to add this because some Brazilians speak this way, and I want you to be able to understand them. And if you hear, oh, como você se chama? Oh, this person is asking my name. He's asking, what is my name? Tá bem? So I want you to answer this question in Portuguese. Choose one of the options and type in the chat. Now I'm going, while you type your answer or any question that you have about this topic, let's review some grammar things. Let's talk about conjugation of the verb ser. There are many details to cover when you talk about conjugation in Portuguese, right? Conjugation in Portuguese is much more complex than in English. We have more pronouns and more conjugations. But let's step by step, right? Let's talk about verb ser, which means to be. So this is the conjugation. I'm going to read out loud, and I recommend that you try to speak with me. Try to repeat what I'm saying just to practice your pronunciation, tá bem? Eu sou. So this means I am. Você é. This means you are. Ele é. He is. Ela é. She is. A gente é. We are. Have you noticed? Same conjugation for all these pronouns, right? So this is interesting. So a gente means we, but this is informal Portuguese. Most Brazilians do use a gente instead of nós, which is the regular pronoun for we. So the conjugation for nós will be nós somos, we are. Vocês são, you are. So this is plural. So another difference here, we have you singular is você, and we have you plural, which is vocês. You have to add the s at the end. If you're talking with a group of people and you want to mean like you guys, you say vocês, vocês plural. Eles são, they are. Elas são, they are. In Portuguese, we have feminine and masculine for the word they. So they is neutral, right? There is no gender. But in Portuguese, we use they are, eles, if you're talking about a group of men, and elas, if it is a group of women. If it is mixed, you could either say just eles or eles e elas. It's up to you. So these are the main pronouns that I use. Some of you might be asking, oh, how about the pronoun tu? Tu means you, also in Portuguese. We do use this pronoun in Brazil, but it's less common. Most people use the pronoun você. So as a beginner, I recommend that you don't worry about the pronoun tu for now, okay? I talk about these topics a lot in my courses in more detail, but for the purpose of this class, I want you to mostly focus on these first two conjugations, because as you can see, it's overwhelming, right? It's a lot. So, but you don't need to learn all of this at once to start speaking, because when you're talking with someone, most of the time we use the pronoun eu, I, and you, você. That's it. So if you learn these two conjugations, you can already talk about a lot of things. Okay, so let's focus on that. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. But if this topic is already easy for you, if you have been studying for a while, then of course I recommend that you learn all the conjugations, because you will need all this to have a more advanced conversation. Tá bem? So just checking here your comments to see if you have any questions about this topic. André, ótimo, muito obrigada. Qual é o seu nome? Meu nome é Mark. Muito bom, Mark. Meu nome é Charles. Excelente, Charles. Olá, gente. Okay, so keep typing your questions and answers to the questions that I gave you. I see that someone is asking about the material. That's interesting. I have not prepared a material for you to download for this class. So I recommend you make notes. But if you want to have access to material to study Portuguese, I recommend that you join my other event, which is a free event, the Brazilian Portuguese Week. And in that event, you have access to a lot of material for download. Tá bem? Então vamos continuar. Let's continue. So here are some examples of the verb ser in sentences. Eu sou Virgínia. Ela é Maria. Ele é João. So you see that in these examples also the structure of Portuguese is very similar to English, right? The pronoun, the verb, and the complement, right? Let's talk quickly, briefly about possessive pronouns. This topic can be very extensive because there are many, many possessive pronouns, but today let's talk only about these two groups, meu and minha, which means my or mine, depending on the position in the sentence, and seu and sua, which means your or yours, depending on the position. So have you noticed? We also have masculine and feminine. Why do Portuguese have so many variations in genders? I don't know. That's how our language works. Most Romance languages have lots of variations on gendered words, right? So whenever we use the pronoun meu, my, to refer to a masculine noun, so it is always connected to a noun, right? So if the noun is masculine, then the pronoun should be masculine. If the noun is feminine, the pronoun should be feminine. Let's see examples. Por exemplo, meu nome é Virgínia. Here I'm saying meu because the word nome is a masculine word. How do you know that? That's a completely different topic. How to understand, to identify the gender of words in Portuguese. There are so many rules. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Okay, so stay with me. And another example. Qual é seu nome? So here I'm also using the masculine pronoun, your name, seu nome, because the word nome is a masculine word. Now let's see examples with feminine words. Minha mãe é brasileira. So here, the word mãe, see the pronunciation is a very nasal sound. Mãe means mother. Minha mãe é brasileira. Here I use the feminine pronoun my mother, minha mãe, because the word mãe is a feminine word. Another example. Qual é sua profissão? So here I use the pronoun sua, your profession, sua profissão, because the word profissão is a feminine word. Tá bem? So if you're not sure what to use, remember, if you know the gender of the noun, you know how to use correctly the pronouns. But sometimes it's hard to tell the gender of the nouns. So don't worry too much about that. You know that gender in Portuguese is really complicated. But if you mix up the genders, if you say, if you use the wrong gender, Brazilians will understand you just the same. So don't worry about that. Don't feel stressed. You will learn how to identify the gender of words with lots of practice, okay? But I'm going to give you a couple of tips. Usually words that end with the letter A, they are feminine, and most of the other words are masculine. Words that ends with this diphthong are usually feminine as well. But there are so many rules that is really not advisable to memorize the rules. It's much easier to learn just case by case. Just think about what you want to say and then, okay, is this word feminine or masculine? You can imitate how Brazilians are using that word, or you can double check quickly at the dictionary. This will be easier than memorizing all the crazy rules and all the exceptions. Muito bem, let me check if you have questions for me. Any question about this topic, about verb ser, about the pronouns that I mentioned? Let me know if you have any questions, tá bem? Estou lendo seus comentários. Meu nome é Jamal, muito bom. So Charles, that's how I pronounce your word. In Brazil, the word Charles is pronounced Charles. Charles. But if you don't like it, I can call you Charles, tá bem? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Muito bom, Jamal. Muito bom, gente. Vamos continuar. Let's continue. Let's move on. Let's move on to the second question. Pergunta número 2. De onde você é? So, where are you from? So here, do you see the structure of the sentence is a little bit different. So, in English, you place the preposition at the end, and in Portuguese, we place it at the beginning. De onde você é means from where you are. So this would be, if I translate word by word, from where you are. But this is the correct way of asking this question in Portuguese. Okay, so you see that not always the translation would be like perfect word by word. It's very important to realize that and to accept that when you're learning a foreign language, because that happens all the time. If you want the things to be exactly like it is in your language, you just feel frustrated. You have to understand that languages are different. It is a good luck when a good chance when we have the same structure. That's good and happy, but many times the language is very, very different. Tá bem? So what do you have to know to answer this question? De onde você é? You have to know things that you already covered. Sentence structure, the conjugation, the verb ser. We use the same verb, right, to answer this question. But two other things you have to learn now: how to use the preposition de and the nationalities, how to say your nationality and the name of a country. I did not add that here, but you have to know how to say the name of a country and your nationality, okay? This is obviously a big list, so I'm going to give you some examples, but I want you to do this homework now. Think about, if you don't know how to say the name of a country or your nationality in Portuguese, take a quick look. You can use Google Translate. It's totally fine. It's a very good tool for translating. To practice, to learn, oh, this is how I say my nationality in Portuguese or the name of my country, tá bem? So another exercise for you: how would you answer this question in Portuguese? And I want you to give me two answers, because you can answer this question in two different ways. Por exemplo, de onde você é? Where are you from? Eu sou do Brasil. I'm from Brazil. Eu sou brasileira. I'm Brazilian. So you can answer this question in these two different ways. When you say the name of the country, you have to use the preposition from, right? I am from Brazil. In Portuguese, this preposition is the preposition de. But usually we have to connect the preposition de with the articles, the feminine and masculine articles, because usually countries in Portuguese, they are either masculine or feminine. Okay, so that makes things a little bit more complicated, but as I said before, don't feel stressed about that. If you don't know the gender of your country, you can just use the neutral preposition, okay? You can just say de and everyone will understand you. Or you can just say, if you don't want to worry about prepositions at all, just say your nationality, right? Brasileira. Eu sou brasileira. So I want you to do this exercise because this is very important for you to learn how to use this preposition and to understand how to think about gender words in Portuguese. And also one other important detail: the word, the nationalities in Portuguese, they also vary in masculine and feminine gender, depending on your gender. Então, por exemplo, eu sou brasileira So the a at the end indicates this is a feminine word. But if a man says that he's Brazilian, he would say, eu sou brasileiro, with the letter O at the end to indicate that is a masculine word. Okay, I'm going to give you more examples about that in a minute. So let's talk first about the preposition G. While I talk about this, remember to do your exercise. Okay, this is important for you to practice and assimilate the content. Então vamos lá. A preposição G. Do you see how I pronounce this? Does it make sense? It doesn't make any sense, right? G. It's weird. This is the most common pronunciation in Brazil of the preposition G. But some people in Brazil would say de or D. So this is one of those words that have many different pronunciations depending on the accent, okay? But the pronunciation G is the most common one in the big cities, São Paulo, Rio, all the big cities, tá bem? So G is a preposition, and prepositions, all prepositions, they are gender neutral. They don't have a gender. But if you use this preposition right before a feminine noun, you have to use the feminine article a, and then you have to connect the two words. G mais a igual da. And if you use this preposition right before a masculine word, you should say do. And if you use before a feminine plural word, you should say das. And if you use before a masculine plural word, you should say dos. I'm going to give you examples because I know it is hard to understand just seeing all these letters on the screen. This is complicated. I'm going to give you sentences now so you understand how to use this. But before I move on, a tip. So we're talking about how to say, I am from this place. So should I say, eu sou da, eu sou do? So one tip, names of countries that end with the letter a, they are feminine and all the others are masculine. Of course, there are many exceptions, but I don't want to give you all the rules because it's overwhelming. Just remember that. If you remember that, you get it right most of the time. Okay, so countries, the name of the country, if it ends with the letter A, you should use, it's a feminine word, you should use the preposition da. If it ends with any other letter or any consonant, it's probably masculine, so you should use the preposition do. And how about cities? Cities are usually neutral, so you just use the gender neutral preposition G. Tá bem? And then you must be wondering, how about states? States don't follow any rule, so there is no rule. You have to learn case by case. Just use the gender neutral if you don't know. Just use G. Tá bem? Some examples to help you understand better what is Virginia talking about. So let's see sentences.
Virginia, sorry to interrupt you quickly, but okay. Rita was asking, because you keep saying it, does taben mean okay?
Yes. Very good question. Yeah. Taben means okay. Taben. So this is an excellent question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to write it here. Taben is actually a short of the phrase tá bem. Is it all right? Is it okay? But basically means, okay, tá bem? Let's move on. Boa pergunta. All right. Então vamos falar sobre... let's see the examples in sentences. Eu sou do Brasil. The pronunciation again can vary a little bit. I could say do Brasil or do Brasil. Both ways are correct, okay? Eu sou do Brasil. Brasil is a masculine name, Brasil, and because it ends with the letter L, so every word in Portuguese usually that ends with the letter L or any other consonant, they usually are masculine. Eu sou de São Paulo. Here I use the neutral preposition, the regular preposition, because São Paulo is a city, and city, most of the time, they are gender neutral, tá bem? Marina é da Itália. So here you see Italia, it ends with the letter A, so it is a feminine word, Itália. Marina é da Itália. So here I should say da Itália, tá bem? Marina é de Roma. De Roma. Roma is a city, so I use the gender neutral preposition. Roma, de Roma. I recommend you always try to repeat after me if you want to improve your pronunciation. Repeating, it's very helpful to improve, to help you with your pronunciation. John é dos Estados Unidos. Ooh, this is different. What is this? So here I have the masculine plural word. Estados Unidos, right? United States. Estados Unidos. It's a plural masculine word. So we use the preposition connects with the plural masculine article. Dos Estados Unidos. And here I have a feminine plural example. Paula é das Filipinas. Paula é das Filipinas. Okay? So to answer this question, you have to remember that. You have to remember to use the correct preposition. But as I said, gender is the less important thing here to express the meaning. If you don't know the gender, just go with G. What is essential is to use the correct verb. If you use the wrong verb here, people will not understand what you're meaning, what you want to say. And if you use the wrong preposition, I mean, if you use another preposition completely different that is not G, then people would also be confused. But if you use the correct verb and the correct preposition, even if you get the gender wrong, you will still be understood. Tá bem? So gender is the least important thing to convey meaning, unless you're talking about unless depending on the context, is very important to know the gender that you want to say. Tá bem? I do say tá bem a lot. I just realized that. Muito bom, gente. Excelente. I hope this is not too difficult. Let me know. Do you have any questions about the prepositions? De, da, do. And I want you to do this exercise because I can help you. If you're not sure, oh, should I use this or that preposition here? Should I say G? Should I say da? Let me know in the comments and I can help you with that. Okay, I can try to explain in a different way to help you understand. So, and also remember to hydrate, drink water. Muito bom. I'm going to read some of your comments. I love reading your comments. Sou de Dallas, no Texas. Muito bom, Charles. Os próprios brasileiros seguem o gênero. So for Brazilians, the genders are natural. So we don't have to think about it because we learned since we were kids. So everyone, all Brazilians, they follow it's super natural for us. Eu sou da Argentina. Muito bom, Maria. Sou americano. Muito bom, Charles. Sou dos Estados Unidos e sou porto-riquenho. Excelente, Ferdinand. Eu sou da Estônia. Muito bom, Margus. Eu sou dos Estados Unidos, da Califórnia. Excelente. So California is a feminine state. It's a feminine word. Eu sou dos Estados Unidos, eu sou americano. Muito bom, vulcanista. Eu sou da Nigéria. Que legal, Rita. Eu quero muito conhecer a Nigéria. Eu sou estoniano. Excelente, Margus. Ferdinand. Okay. These we're talking about. The prepositions are a little confusing. I know. The prepositions are difficult in every language. I've been living in the US for almost 10 years, and I've been studying English my entire life. Sometimes I still get confused with 2 and 4. When do I use 2 and 4? I still mix that up. And I still get confused with in, on, or at. Why? It's so confusing. It's okay. Don't feel stressed. It's completely normal to feel overwhelmed with prepositions, especially in Portuguese because of all this gender stuff, right? I promise that you will learn with time and practice. Eu sou de Honduras. Muito bom. Let's talk a little bit now. Continue to type your answers. Let's talk a little bit now about nationalities. Como você diz a sua nacionalidade? How would you say your nationality? I saw that many of you are already typing your nationality. So here you also have to think about gender, but this is just like your gender, so this is easier. You don't have to think too much, right? If you identify as a woman, you should use the feminine word. If you identify as a man, you should use the masculine word. Então, por exemplo, eu sou brasileira. I'm Brazilian. Meu marido, my husband, who's right there, meu marido é brasileiro. So the letter O in this word indicates that is a masculine word. And the letter A at the end of this word indicates that's a feminine word. Let's see other examples. Estados Unidos. So here you could say, ela é americana. Ele é americano. So again, the letter A at the end, feminine, the letter O at the end, masculine. So this is very common in Portuguese, right? The letter A usually indicates a feminine word, and the letter O usually a masculine word. But there are many words that end with other letters. Then that's when it gets more confusing, right? But how about this example here? Ela é estadunidense. Complicated word, right? Estadunidense. This also means American. So some people in Brazil, most people I would say use the words americana, americano. So if you go to Brazil and if you say that eu sou americano, eu sou americana, it's totally correct. And most people use this word, but some people prefer to use the word estadunidense because, we are all Americans. In Brazil, we are from South America. We are from the Americans. So some people don't like to use the word American to refer to people from the United States. I honestly don't mind. You can use any word, Americana, Americano, or estadunidense. But interesting, the word estadunidense ends with the letter E. And usually in Portuguese, words that end with the letter E, this is an adjective, right? They can be used for both genders. So it's a word that can be used for as a masculine or as a feminine word. You know if it is masculine or feminine because of the context. So if you say, ela é estadunidense, we know they're talking about a woman because of the word ela. If you say, ele é estadunidense, you know you're talking about a man because of the word ele. Tá bem? Another example of nationality. Someone from Inglaterra, England. You would say, ela é inglesa. So this is the different, right? So here we have the ending ano, ana, eiro, eira, and here we have esa, inglesa. And the masculine word would be inglês, which is exactly the same name of the language, inglês. Ele é inglês. So we could spend hours talking about nationalities because the list would be huge, but most nationalities would follow this same structure, would have the same ending, would have the ending ana or ano, or esa or is, depending on the country. I want to see if you have more comments here so I can help you with that. So Pinky is agreeing that we are all Americans, so we use estadunidense. Muito bom. Charles, sou estadunidense. Muito bom. André, sou colombiana. Muito bom. Eu sou de Honduras. Excelente. Muito bom, gente. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I'm here to help you. Questions about nationalities or about these prepositions, tá bem? Muito bom. So I already talked about this, about not worrying about gender, right? Yes, we have time to finish. Let's talk about the third question. And then after I talk about this, we just open for questions and I can answer any questions that you have, tá bem? So pergunta número 3, question number 3. O que você faz? What does it mean? O que você faz means what do you do, like for a living, right? As a work. What do you work with? Another way of asking this question, qual é sua profissão ou ocupação? So profession, occupation. But the most common way of asking this question really is, o que você faz? O que você faz? O que você faz? This is the most common, tá bem? But you could also use this other question here. So to answer this question, you have to know basic structure, conjugating verb ser, so we already covered that. and you need to know vocabulary about profession and occupation. So I highly recommend that you do a quick research. You can use Google Translate. Sometimes, depending on the occupation, Google Translate will not help you much, but I can help you with that if you don't know how to say what you do for a living, like what is your profession or occupation. The most traditional ones are easy to find out, but some other more modern occupations, they sometimes they don't. It's difficult to find a translation into Portuguese, right? So I can help you with that. Let's do this exercise. I want you to answer this question: que você faz? What do you do? Que você faz? So coming back to sentence structure, notice that here, o que, one phrase means what. Sometimes we say que and sometimes we say o que. Both ways are used in Portuguese, but usually when there is a pronoun right after the question, the word question, usually we use the o que instead of que. So this is just like how the language works. And you, você means you, and faz means do. But in English, something that happens and that we don't have in Portuguese is the auxiliary verb to ask questions. We don't use any auxiliary verbs to ask questions. So the verb in English is you either use the verb to do or to have, right? To ask questions. In Portuguese, we just ask the question. It's just the main verb. So there is no auxiliary verb here. O que você faz? What do you do? Another way to ask the same question. Qual é sua profissão ou ocupação? So here the structure is very similar to English. What is your profession or occupation? Same structure. Exemplos de respostas. Examples of answers. Eu sou professora. Many students would ask me, can I say eu sou uma professora? Because in English we say I'm a teacher. You could, but it just sounds more natural to say without the article. Just eu sou professora. You don't have to say eu sou uma professora. You could, but it sounds more natural without it. Eu sou professora. Professora can mean teacher or professor. So you know by the context, okay? Teacher or professor. Eu sou professora. Ele é professor. He's a teacher. So here the masculine word ends with the letter R, and the feminine word ends with the letter A. So when you're talking about occupation, profession, most of the time we also have to think about gender. It really depends on the case. Some occupations, they use the same word for both. It really doesn't matter. And sometimes instead of saying, oh, I'm this or I'm that, you could say, oh, I work with this or I work with that. Eu trabalho com, I'm going to add this another example because many occupations today, you don't use the verb to be in Portuguese. You just say, I work with this. Eu trabalho com, I work with. Or you could also say, eu trabalho in this place. No, let's stay with this. Eu trabalho com, and then you can add anything here related to your occupation. I work with. This is a very common way of also telling what you do. Tá bem? And here I'm using a verb, a regular verb, the verb trabalhar, which means to work. We are not going to cover conjugation of regular verbs today, but because if you just say the name of a profession, you don't need to use any verb. You can just use the verb ser, which we already talked about. Tá bem? Now let's see some examples of how to say a sentence using the names of different occupations. Então, por exemplo, eu sou professora de português. I'm a Portuguese teacher. So here we have an example of different sentence structure comparing Portuguese to English. So in Portuguese, we have always to place the word professora before here. So if you're saying what kind of teacher you are, what do you teach? Instead of saying Portuguese teacher, in Portuguese, I have to change the position of the words and add the preposition de. So basically means I'm a teacher of Portuguese. if I translate word by word. I know that we don't speak like that in English, but that's how we speak in Portuguese. Okay? I cannot say português professora. It would not make sense in Portuguese. We have to change the position of the words and add the word de here. Tá bem? Eu sou professora de português. Another example, ele é professor de inglês. So remember, I'm using professora here because I'm a woman, and here professor because he is a man, right? Another example, ela é engenheira. Engenheira. Are you repeating after me to practice? This is hard, huh? Engenheira. Engenheira. Remember the NH is nha. Engenheira. Ele é engenheiro. Ele é engenheiro. So the word that ends with A is a feminine word, and the word that ends with O is a masculine word. Another example. Ela é gerente de uma loja. So here, store manager. You see, again, I have to change the position. So, store manager. Ela é gerente de uma loja. So, I have to change the position. Gerente de. I could drop the uma here. I could just say gerente de loja. When I say uma loja, it means like a store, any kind of store. And ele é gerente de uma loja. So here you see that I use the same word for ele and ela. Remember that before, when I was talking about the word estadunidense, I told you that the words that end with the letter E, they can be used for both masculine and feminine. So this is also the case of the word gerente. Gerente. The pronunciation is different, right? Repeat after me. Gerente. Gerente. So the TE at the end of words, they're usually pronounced as chi. It varies depending on the accent. Some people would say te, but this pronunciation is the most common in Brazil. Gerente. Gerente. Tá bem? Just one more example now using a plural, a group, they. Elas são arquitetas. So when I say elas são arquitetas, I'm talking about a group of women, tá bem? Eles são arquitetos. When I say eles são arquitetos, I could be talking either about a group of men or a mixed group, men and women. Tá bem? And here I use the plural verb and the plural name of this profession. Tá bem? Now it's your turn. I want to see your comments. What do you do? O que você faz? O que você faz? Qual é a sua profissão e a sua ocupação? Let me know in the comments. Remember to drink water. It's so hot. I'm spending a few days in Florida. That's why I'm looking, you see, I have some tan skin. And it is like every day is like 30 degrees Celsius here. I don't use Fahrenheit, guys. I use Celsius. Okay, reading your comments. Ah, muito bom. Eu sou contadora. Muito bom, Andréa. Como você chama uma pessoa do Japão? Very good question, Margos. Japonês, for a man, e japonesa. Japonesa. I'm going to write it here. Ele é japonês. So this is a masculine word. Ela é japonesa. It's just like inglês, inglesa, right? From England, we also use the same ending. Japonês, japonesa. Good question. Boa pergunta. Eu sou um fleet service clerk por uma aerolínea. Oh, uma empresa de aeronaves. I wouldn't know how to say this in Portuguese. I would have to check that out. Muito bom. Ferdinand, sou estudante de doutorado e assistente de pesquisa. Excelente, Ferdinand. Sou aposentado. Muito bom, Dona. Aposentado means retired, né? I'm retired. Sou aposentado. So aposentado is the masculine word. If you're a woman, you should say sou aposentada. Muito bom. Dona, eu sou uma conselheira de luto aposentado. Muito bom. So here, Dona, you said conselheira, and then you said aposentado. Here it is important to choose one gender. You should say conselheira aposentada or conselheiro aposentado. Okay? So if you want to use the feminine word, you should say conselheira aposentada. Okay? So both words should have the same gender. Excelente. Pinky says, eu sou doutora, doctor, muito bom. So in Portuguese, we have the most common way, I think you mean doctor like from medicine, right? You studied medicine, right? If you mean that, in Portuguese, the most common way of saying that you are a doctor is médico ou médica. Por exemplo, eu sou médica, if you are a woman. Eu sou médico, if you are a man. So this is the most used word for doctors that work with medicine, right? When you say you are doutor or doutora, this is less common. This is more used in in the academics. Also, you could say, you can't, when you're talking to the person, you can say doutor or doutora. You can call the person doutor and doutora because this shows respect to your doctor, right? But when you're talking about your profession, it's more common to say médico, médica. Okay, I hope that helps. So both words are used, but like, I want to talk with the doctor. You could say, eu quero falar com o médico. But when you're talking directly to your doctor, you could call him or her doutor ou doutora to show respect. Tá bem? I hope that helps. Sou consultor de investimentos. Excelente, Margos. Investment consultant. I'm trying to help those who don't understand. Eu sou repositor, Christian, repositor. I'm not sure what that means. I understand the word, but I'm not sure exactly what is this occupation. Maybe I don't know. De vulcanista, eu sou analista de dados. Excelente. Jorn, how do I pronounce your name? Jorn. Eu sou engenheiro de serviço de campo. Excelente. Podcaster. This is so modern. So all the new creators, jobs and occupations, we usually we just use the same word in English because they're super new, right? So for example, YouTuber in Portuguese is YouTuber. You just say the same word with a very Brazilian accent. YouTuber, podcaster. I think you would say something like that. Excelente, muito bom. Good job. Very good job. If you have any questions about this, feel free to ask your questions. Still have a few minutes. It's super late already. So let's get to your questions. While you think about any questions that you have for me, Portuguese, or related to the content that I mentioned, or any other content if I have time. If it is a quick question, I can answer your question about my courses or anything that you have. While you think about your questions, I'm going to remind you about the event that I mentioned at the beginning. So here I have more information for you. Brazilian Portuguese Week. I'm so excited. This is the 4th Brazilian Portuguese Week that I'm hosting. This is a completely free event that I host for 1 week. And I teach one class each day. Similar to this class, it's on YouTube and you can ask questions and do exercises in the chat. And I read all your most of your comments and help you. But the difference is that you also have access to the material. You can download the material for each class. So you can, study after the class or before the class. And I also have giveaways. It's super fun. It's like a week party. And I promise you that you'll learn a lot of Portuguese. Some classes are for beginner level students and some classes for intermediate level students. So this event is really recommended for everyone. And of course, you can choose the lessons that you want to, the classes that you want to attend. So add it to your calendar from April 17th to the 23rd. So the live classes will be held every day at 2 p.m. New York time, Eastern time. But if you miss the class, you can also watch a replay. You find the link for a replay on the website, so don't worry about that. Tá bem? You can sign up for free on my website, BrazilianPortugueseWeek.com. But I know that you also find the link below the description of this video. And also I saw at the top of the live chat. So you can just click that there and go and sign up. I'm going to show you really quick the program of this week. I'm so excited. So the first class will be verb conjugation for beginners. The second class will be basic conversation for beginners. So it will be similar to what we did today, but I'm going to bring more information and different questions for you to practice. The third class will be pronunciation training. So we are going to talk about open and closed vowels, which is a topic that is really difficult for some students. I want you to help you with that, especially the open O and the closed O. Let's talk about that. The fourth class will be on pronunciation training also, but in this class, we're going to cover nasal sounds like the word mãe, the word pão. I know this is very hard for many students. These pronunciation trainings are recommended for all levels, okay? The fifth class is intermediate level class. It will be 100% in Portuguese, and we will talk about subjunctive mood. I know you guys need help with that, so let's talk about that in this class. The class number 6 will be also for intermediate level students. We'll talk about idiomatic expressions. I'll bring a list of fun common idiomatic expressions that we use in Brazil. And the last class will cover mostly study tips. I love to share with you how I study languages. And also we have a longer time for a Q&A. Tá bem? So that's it about the Brazilian Portuguese week. Now, if you have any questions, I would love to answer your questions.
Yeah,
Hey,
Virginia.
Donna, did you learn some words in Portuguese today?
I did, and right off the bat, the pronunciation is what gets me because I have a little background in Spanish and French even more, and so right away some of the verbs and stuff make sense, but then the pronunciation is just in a totally different place, which I wanted to call out because I saw this earlier when I was prepping for this event. You have a free course just on pronunciation, right?
I do, yes. And
Yeah.
I cover, the most important topics on pronunciation.
Yeah,
Indeed.
so I just wanted to call that out because I hopped in there, was starting to look at it, and that's so helpful right off the bat. Because, yeah, even if you have a little background in Latin languages, Portuguese is such a different feel around the mouth and stuff. So
Totally.
that's still the thing where I'm like, what? Wait, how are you getting that from a
Yeah.
TE? How
Where
do you?
does that sound come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah. And I know we have some questions popping in. Unlike most events, I don't know what people are asking because your audience is really awesome and
You
writing
see, they
in
are very good
Portuguese.
students. They write in
Yeah.
Portuguese.
Yeah. So, well, those questions for everyone watching, we have a couple more minutes here with Virginia to answer any of those questions. And just wanted to point out once more the links for that free week are in the description and in the comments. I also wanted to just throw the link to your free pronunciation class in there because I already found that so helpful. But I just wanted to start off the Q&A with something. I was just in France for 4 months, and there was this big hullabaloo because they just put in the dictionary "il," which is like "il" and "elle." It's a gender neutral pronoun.
Oh, okay.
And of course, everyone's freaking out about it.
Yes, that's a very complicated topic.
It's very, but I was without getting too into it or any like gender politics or anything, I was just curious, is there anything like that in Portuguese that people use in the common language, or is it still very gendered? I know coming from English, the gender thing can be such a trip. So I was
Yes.
curious if just in like the, lexicon of like modern speakers, if there's stuff like that developing.
Yes, we do have a neutral language that is being created that is very new. And a lot of people use it, but only people from certain communities. So most Brazilians, they just use the regular gender language, and the language that you find in books and that is considered standard. It's completely gender. Everything is feminine or masculine. It's crazy. It's a very gender language. So for that reason, we have this huge, that's very interesting movement in Brazil to add a third neutral gender. And there is an author that is a group of people created this guide. It's very interesting. I even made a video about that. But in Brazil, this topic is very polemic. It became political.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that as political. I'm a teacher. I just see like a very interesting linguistic phenomenon that is happening. And I'm completely pro changing the language, because the language is changing all the time by itself. We cannot control that.
Right.
But in Brazil, that became a very complicated topic, because it became like this extreme right is against and the extreme left is for, and they are fighting because of the language. Is crazy.
Right.
So that's the complication of the topic, because it's very interesting. Actually, it does exist, but only a few people use it, and sometimes people fight over it, not because of the language, but because of the politics behind it, which is crazy.
Right. Well, that's why, like, all politics be damned. I was just curious because, as well, I'm just fascinated with the way the language develops and changes.
Yes.
And my experience in France was the spoken language is very different from what you learn. So it's cool to link all those different things together.
Yes, in Portuguese too. The language that is spoken in Brazil is very different from the books. That's the hardest thing for my students.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you want to go through, I know there's a bunch of questions here. So I'll try and follow along with you as you call them out here. But since most of your students are awesome and already writing in Portuguese, I have to rely on you a little bit here.
So I see one question here. Marcos, this is nothing to do with Portuguese, but I'm just going to answer. Marcos is asking if I was in Bahrain a couple of months ago, and I just published a video. It was a fun video. Bahrain é caro. Well, it is. You know, the currency in Bahrain, it's very, it varies. Like one Bahrain costs about $2.65. So everything is very expensive in Bahrain.
Wow.
So yeah, just so you know, it's a very expensive place, but it's an amazing place. If you want to go to the Arabic world, it's really cool. It's a really nice place to visit. Benjamin, so caminheiro. I think you mean caminhoneiro. Not sure if you're talking about riding a truck. That would be caminhoneiro. So it's a different word.
Like a truck driver?
Yeah, truck driver would be caminhoneiro. Caminhoneiro.
Cool.
I think that what you meant, Benjamin. Not sure. So the Vulcanist is asking, will the intermediate course open soon? Yes. So I will, my new classes, so I open and close enrollments, right? Because I have to organize the groups. And my next classes start in May, and the enrollment will be open in April. Okay, so I recommend you join the Brazilian Portuguese Week, because I will talk about that during the event. I'll be promoting my other courses. So if you join the Brazilian Portuguese Week, which is a free course, you can get more information about the other courses. And if you go to learn more about my intermediate course, you find all the information on my main website, which is speakingbrazilian.com. Tá bem? So you can get started in May. So exciting.
Love it.
I don't see any other questions. So Marcos is asking to have the event earlier, right? I cannot change that now, Marcos, because it is already organized. I know it is. I really wish I could offer an event that wasn't the perfect time for everyone, but I have students from everywhere. I have students from Pacific time and Eastern time and Europe time. So it's really hard to find a time that works for everyone. So what I can do is offer a replay, and the replay will be available. So if you cannot attend the class live, you can still watch a replay. Tá bem?
Right.
Okay.
Pinky Little Mama was asking, can you say something in Spanish?
Puedo hablar un poquito en español, pero hablo argentino en español.
Oh, sí.
So my Spanish is from Argentina, and I confess, like, I speak 4 languages, but Spanish is my 4th, is the one that I practice the least. I need to get better at that.
So is Argentinian Spanish similar to like a Catalan or that where it's a little more the, like the the
Yeah,
sound in it?
no, it's very different from Catalan. It's more, it's Castellano. Um, there
Okay.
are some differences. It's so interesting. Spanish, if you go, I've been to some different places, like the Spanish that they speak in Mexico is so different from Argentinian.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it varies. It's the
Yeah.
same language, but many, many differences, and especially the accent. It's
Oh,
fascinating.
then Barcelona is its whole own thing.
Yeah, we don't do that. They don't do that in Argentina. The th
No?
sound,
No?
Barcelona. No,
No? Okay.
which I think it's
Love it.
cute. Barcelona.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Ok, inglês, português. So, Marcos, just one more question from Marcos. He's asking, o dicionário inglês-português europeu é o mesmo dicionário inglês-português? I don't know. So the dictionary English-Portuguese. Oh, so if you're talking about Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese, it's mostly the same in the dictionary because the thing is all the words that we use in Brazil and in Portugal, they are in our dictionary, but we just don't
mm,
use those words.
ah.
So if you look for
Right.
words that are very common in Portugal and you look in our dictionary, the word is there, but we just don't use them. So the dictionary, they are probably very, very similar, but the way that we use the language is very different.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Okay, very good questions. Will Brazilians understand if I don't know the Portuguese word and I use the Spanish word? It really depends. Some people will get mad at you if you use Spanish in Brazil because some people think that Brazilians speak Spanish and they get offended. I would never get offended. I really don't care. But many people, if the person is used to listening to Spanish, they will understand you, but most people would not. So be careful. Maybe you can, like if you speak Spanish with me, of course I will understand, but I have studied Spanish. Most Brazilians would not. It's a different language.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
I know it's very, very similar, especially if you read. It's so similar, but it's another language. You still need to get used and train your ear to understand.
Right. Virginia, I think we have time for one more question, but this is a
Okay.
great one to end on. Mohammed was saying, my father is an 80-year-old. He is learning Portuguese, but he is stuck. What is the best way for him to study because he has difficulty remembering the vocabs and doesn't want to speak incorrect? I
Well,
really love this because that fear of speaking incorrect, I know from my own experience, can
yeah.
be really hard to work around.
That's an amazing question. That's amazing that he is learning Portuguese with 80 years old. That is amazing. I have many students that are older and they do learn Portuguese and they learn a lot. Of course, some students struggle more than other students. I have a couple of tips. The most important one is that it is really important that he feels comfortable making some mistakes because that's how you learn. It is impossible. You see, you're listening to me speaking English all this time, and I'm sure I made many mistakes, and I'm sure I said many awkward things. And really, but I can communicate, right? You can understand me. So it is very important to be comfortable making mistakes. You're speaking a foreign language. That's amazing. So if you can speak and communicate, even if you make mistakes, that's really something amazing that you should be proud of. But that said, something that could help him with retaining vocabulary is some kind of app that helps with space repetition system, that uses the space repetition system. All the apps, they use that, but my favorite is the Anki Web. It's a free app, ankiweb.com or .net, ankiweb.net, and it's free, and you can add cards. And if you use that app, and if you use that for like 10 to 5 minutes every day, it will help you retain vocabulary. That's what you need. You need to feed your brain the right time to be able to remember,
Mm,
because our brain forgets almost everything. But if you
right,
feed your
right.
brain again and again, then you can really, okay, remember. So I recommend that. It's Anki, web.net. The online version is completely free. And if you type Speaking Brazilian Anki Web on Google, you find a deck that I created for beginners. It's
Oh,
completely
cool.
free. Just type and find it and start using it. It takes a while to get used to the app, okay? But once you learn how to use it, it's amazing. And they also have a mobile app that is paid, but then it's up to you. I like the online one, which is free. So I hope that helps.
Love
That
it.
was a very
Yeah.
good question.
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's been such a pleasure having you. And for everyone watching, thank you for showing up and being active. I'm super impressed. We've done a few like beginning language courses, but this crew is already writing in Portuguese and diving in. I love
They
it.
are
It's been,
amazing.
yeah, it's been such a blast having you all. And if you had a good time today, please like and subscribe to the Spotlight channel. We're continuing to bring folks like Virginia out here to help us learn about all things from language to business, marketing, all of these things we love to learn about. And Virginia, it's been a total blast today. How do you say farewell in Portuguese or like goodbye? How do we
Ciao,
sign off?
ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Well, it's been a total blast. Everyone, thank you so much for being here and ciao, ciao.
Ciao, gente.